I would like to hand it off to Amy.
Thanks, Barbara. And Barbara is going to be our slide navigator, so she can go to the next slide. Oh, after we get through the QM slides. There we go. So this webinar is to highlight, and I say highlight because it's the work that I've been doing over the last several years as a QM research colleague and online degree programs. I started working in online degree programs about over a decade ago, and like many instructional designers, wanted to find out what the research says before I got involved in online degree programs, or as I will call ODPs. And so I set into the literature and was kind of bummed that there wasn't much literature or good research literature on what makes an ODP quality. So over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I've really been focusing on, cultivating a lot of the literature. And then QM was aware of all the work that I'd been doing and said, hey, do you want to create a white paper for us? I said, I would love to create a white paper. So wrote a white paper. It is lengthy, but it is digestible, as I say. And in today's webinar, I just want to call out some of the main points of the white paper to kind of just give you an overview so that you can then dive into the paper. Next slide. Can everybody hear me okay too? Yes, good. I just want to make sure because sometimes my mic switches and then I'm not working with the correct mic. So our webinar objectives, hopefully by the end of the session, you're going to be able to apply a systems level perspective to program design by mapping the 4 QM certification pillars for program design. We're going to talk about designing integrated supports that embed community, faculty development, and learner services across the life cycle of a program. And then finally, really focusing on quality assurance, or QA, as a strategic commitment that moves beyond compliance toward a sustainable culture change and measurable transformation. So next slide. So in this first section, we're going to start looking at the larger context for online degree program. Next slide. So hopefully several of you attended the Chloe webinar not that long ago. And during that Chloe webinar, we learned that a lot of institutions are really kind of looking at strengthening their online programs. Like, we already know we have online programs, but how do we strengthen them? How do we move forward? Maybe creating some graduate certificates, micro-credential programs. So we know that online programs are here. They're going to stay. So how do we make the most of them? So we've got millions of learners are now in our online programs. And the growth brings lots of opportunity, but also a responsibility for the institution. We know we have these online learners that want programs, but how do we do it at a quality level? So the question is no longer if we should offer online programs, but how we can ensure those programs are rigorous, equitable, and coherent. And all of that really is going to focus on a holistic design. And that's what this white paper focuses on, is that holistic design of looking at aligning curriculum, community, and quality assurance to being the path forward for ODPs. Next slide. And we have our first poll. So before we go further, let's take a quick pulse of who's here. What's your biggest challenge in online program quality? And do we have this as an interactive poll, or are we putting it in the chat?
We're just going to put it in the chat today, so feel free to type A, B, C, or D, or E in the chat.
Good to know. Now I got to get my chat to catch up. I'm seeing a lot of A's. And there's a run on E's. Couple B's. At least one D. All right, from what I'm seeing in the chat, it may be a toss-up between program design and all of the above. With program design maybe being a little bit higher. It's interesting to see that learner support isn't a challenge, but I think if we're all really focused on QM, we usually have all those learner support pieces kind of built into our templates. So maybe that's why learner support's a little less. But I do think it's program design and all of the above. And I would agree with that. And thinking about the programs that I work on, I kind of think it is all of the above, because for me, it's hard to pick one because all four of them work seamlessly together. So that is going to help us with looking at what the research says about designing and sustaining high quality ODPs. So the literature on the next slide emphasizes three main things. So as you know, you read the white paper, there's lots of literature in there, but there are three core themes that come out. One that focuses on alignment. And for anyone that has heard me speak about instructional design, I feel that alignment is that one word that describes what instructional design is all about. Because it's not just making sure we've got the alignment of our outcomes with our assessments and our learning activities and our course tools, which is very important for a course, but also when we're looking at program, it's aligning the program mission, the institution mission, all of that with the program outcomes that then align to the course outcomes. So we all are familiar with alignment that happens within a course. We just need to layer that up to another level when we're looking at program. And it's looking at those program level outcomes along with the mission, along with how they define success. All of that really does promote a quality ODP, is having that alignment. The second thing that quality ODPs share is having a sense of belonging for the student. And Shepherd and Bollinger have this framework. It's called the institutional, program, and professional level. So it's the IPP model. And what that really talks about is how the program, the institution, and the profession all work together to create that sense of belonging from the student from the first time they inquire about the program all through graduation and in completing their alumni surveys. So it's not just looking at one touch point, it's looking at that entire life cycle and how the institution, the program, and the profession all feed into that student to help them create that sense of community and belonging with the program. And then the final piece, still on the last slide, Barbara. The last piece of a quality ODP is looking at continuous feedback for improvement. So this definitely echoes the QM mantra of continuous improvement, that in programs, it's all about that continuous improvement that's coming from the data to sustain that quality. So getting lots and lots of data and actually using that data, listening to your students and making the changes accordingly. Now we can go into our second poll. Which factor do you think most influences online learner persistence? So what is going to make your online students stay in an online program? And this one I intentionally did not do in all of the above. Oh, I so wish we would have had a pie chart for this, because this one is going to be hard because all of you, like A and B is common, for clear pathways and that instructor presence. I'm seeing a little bit of C's come through with the connections. Thank you, Elizabeth. I was saying that as you were typing, we were in sync. I say C because B falls into C. Yep. Okay. It's as we see, for an online program to keep that learner engaged in the program, it's all of that. For me, it all comes down to the instructor teaching the course. Like, are they having that good experience? I really like how Dawn said that B falls into C because it's all about that community connection. And to me, having those clear pathways of where you start and how you proceed through the program also helps do that community connection. So they kind of do all work together. And as we know, we also need to make sure we've got those support services built into our programs. So now we're going to switch into, now that we've kind of got that foundation of the research, let's look at two main frameworks that really look holistically at programs. So the first one is one that I've created, which is based on QM, which is on the next slide. And this diagram was a happy collaboration between Barbara Birch, Bethany Simich, and I to kind of go, we need some way to think about these 4 program certifications that QM does. And several years ago, I did a presentation at QM Connect on program design. And I always think of it as the quality assurance pie. And that's how I look at this holistic design for ODPs. So for all of you who've taken the APP QMR, one of the early slides you see is the quality pie, which contains, I believe it's 8 wedges, and we learned that program design is only one wedge in kind of creating that quality course experience for students. Well, when you look at programs, it's the same way. We have a larger pie. So it's connecting the teaching support with the program design, the learner support and the learner success. But at the center is the quality assurance and the continuous improvement that feeds each one of those pillars. And so one question I'm always asked about when you're looking at the 4 program certifications is, where do you start? For me, you can start anywhere on your circle, anywhere on this pie, because they all work together and you need all of them to be working together to have that quality experience. So it doesn't matter if you start with the program design and making sure you have QM certified courses and that you've got people designing those courses who have that professional development. You can start there. You can start with learner support and making sure that you've got surveys in for your students that are asking them about their advising, their writing center experience, their tutoring. Are they getting the help with financial aid, advising appointments, career services? All of that feeds into learner support. We also have learner success, which to me, learner success and program design really do go hand in hand to make sure that you've got those program outcomes that are being assessed throughout your program. And maybe it's you have a capstone course, and that's where all the program learning outcomes are being met. But again, you want to build in those program outcomes into all the courses, not just the capstone, kind of doing that scaffolding support, as well as making sure your teachers, your faculty have that presence in the course, that they're going through professional development to improve their online teaching. And through each of these pieces, making sure that you're collecting data and actually using that data. So it's kind of listening and learning. Like, collecting data is great, but if you're going to collect the data, you got to look at it and use it. And so that's kind of how I view the 4 program certifications, as kind of being that pie, this holistic framework of they all work together and it's all collaborative. And now we're going to go into our next model, which is the Shepherd and Bollinger's IPP model. So again, it's connecting the institution the program, and the profession. So I created this diagram. Usually when you see Shepherd and Bollinger, it's kind of a graph that spans the life of the student. So it starts when they start looking at your program online, asking for information. So starting there all the way till after they graduate and you send them the alumni survey. So it's more of a continuous graph. I look at it as kind of these three interconnected circles because the institution, the profession, and the program all need to work together to create that sense of belonging and engagement for that student. So it's looking at, what capstone projects, what authentic assessments do you have in the course? And so that's really connecting the profession with the program. Looking at career services and alumni advising. All of that is connecting the institution to the profession. And then when you look at the institution and the program, it's all about that curriculum. And so it's these three circles that have all these intricacies. And obviously the circles change depending on which part the students are in their program. But again, that center for the ODP is creating that sense of belonging and engagement. Are there any questions before we go into practice? Okay. So research is great. I love research. I dive into research. I love doing research. But for most of us, it's okay, I've read this research study. Now, how do I apply it to what I'm doing? So this is where we get to the implications of practice. What do the findings mean for our institutions, our faculty, and our learners? Oh, I do see a question. Oh, can you briefly describe an authentic assessment? I will describe an authentic assessment in a few slides, Joshua. So I will get there. We're just not on that slide yet, but we will get there. So implications for practice. So this is the section of the paper I really wanted to make come out because I think this is where most of the take-home messages are. So if we switch to the next slide, we're going to talk about institutions. So with institutions, from the research, there's three main things that stand out on what the institution could be doing to help promote the quality and enhance the quality in their programs. First, it's all about alignment, which I went through on that very first slide of going that core common theme that was coming out was alignment. It's aligning the program to both the mission and the market needs. So going out, seeing where the demands are for the student. What does the student need to acquire? What skills do they need in this program? And that needs to be from a market study, a feasibility study, and going out and being like, okay, we know we need students that have these skills. That's that first part, is aligning the program to that mission and how they're going to be able to work in that market. And so one of the challenges I think that we find now is one of my advisors several years ago, okay, maybe more than several years ago now, told me the reason I was struggling to figure out where I wanted to go in my career is that the job I was meant for didn't exist yet. And I think for a lot of the students that we have in our class, the job that we are training them for doesn't exist. And so that makes it challenging. So it's really kind of trying to think of what skills can this student need to take them to further succeed. The second thing that institutions can do is build teams. I am all about collaborative team builds and working in a team. It really does make a good product when you can work as a team. And with these teams, they're cross-functional. So it's not just having that pair of a faculty and an instructional designer. It's having the instructional designer, the educational technologist, working with accreditation, working with the curriculum committees, working with the student support services, having all of those different realms of what makes up an online degree program working together. You're not siloed when you're working in online program development. It should be a very collaborative connection where everyone is working together to support that mission and those program outcomes. And third, it's all about continuous improvement and feedback. So looking at building those teams, aligning the mission, but making sure we have those systematic feedback loops built into the program. And so if we're looking at all three of these, we're really shifting quality assurance from compliance to culture. So it's looking at embedding this quality assurance framework into the culture of the institution, the program, however you are set up. Next slide. So we talked about the institution. What about the faculty and the designers? So the support must be systemic, not supplemental. That means structuring onboarding, mentoring, and professional development. And so kind of having that built in where you're doing a lot of mentoring, you're doing a lot of professional development, because you got to think about it, that faculty are experts in their field. They may not be experts in writing outcomes, accessibility, establishing that alignment piece. And as I said earlier, the crux of an instructional designer goes down to alignment. And that's where the instructional designer can really help in this. In creating that relationship with the faculty is kind of looking at not just the alignment within a course, but how does that course fit into the program? How does this mission fit into this course? How does this course help them succeed in their other courses? How does this help them succeed in getting a job? One thing that we all know that we like and do is we create templates. And I think that's why a lot of us said that learner support was probably our least challenge, because a lot of us have that learner support built in to the online templates that we use, whether that be in our start here or how your syllabus is set up. But those templates really do help because they create that consistency for the student across that program. But when we're talking about templates, we are still preserving that academic freedom. And so, yes, we do want students to have that same look and feel across the program, but also giving that faculty member the freedom to create the different assignments, use the different readings that they want. But also going back to, does all of that fit the program outcomes? Does that fit the mission? Does that fit the skills we want the student to see? And that's where that instructional designer can really help the faculty, is as they're creating all of those materials and putting them together, is seeing how all of that fits. Now, when we're looking at assessments, we want to make sure we have the feedback in place. So in QM, we look at rubrics, having checklists, all of that is really important. But at a program level, looking at that assessment feedback. If you have a program outcome that may not be meeting your ultimate goals, whatever those may be for your program, maybe there's something wrong with how the assessment is built. And so it could be asking the students for feedback on those assessments. With the assessments, making sure we have that timely feedback. Yes, this is all stuff that we talk about when we're working on a course and make it a course QM certified. The same principles apply, just at a larger scale across the program. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're creating those meaningful learning experiences for the students. Oh, okay, which then creating those meaningful learning experiences for our students goes into learner success. And so kind of a joint between the assessment piece and the learner success, we'll go to Joshua's question about an authentic assessment. For me, the authentic assessment is something rich, it's unique. it could be really tailored to what that student needs. So instead of creating, a specific prompt and an assignment instructions, kind of allowing that student to go, okay, this is the job you want. How can this assignment help you in that job? What would you need? One of the things that I love about the PhD program that I was in is that I still refer back to all of those assessments, and I consider them authentic assessments because all of the assessments I completed in all of my courses, I still refer back to today for helping me guide how to create better programs, how to influence the design that we do. So it really is creating a different type of assessment that's more subjective, but really allowing that student to go, what do you need in this job? And creating an assignment around those skills. Now, that really focuses on our learner success. And the whole crux of learner success within the program certification is how do you define success? And in doing a definition of success, it needs to go beyond just completion rates and graduation rates. Yes, we need retention, we need persistence, so we need those high rates, but there's more to success than just having high numbers for graduations. Do those students actually, are they able to get jobs? Are they actually able to apply what they've learned in the classroom, in the program, on site? So really think about when you're looking at your program and all the outcomes that you've created is going, those outcomes should kind of be what your definition of success is. What does a successful student of this program look like? Once you have defined that, then it makes all the other parts of the program kind of fall into place, is having that definition. And so it's looking at self-efficacy, it's looking at skill application, career readiness, having that equity-focused support system that's embedded from their orientation to the program all the way through alumni engagement, and having that support system from the beginning to the very end, and then continuing on, because you want those alumni to come back and speak about your program and help get more students in that program. And then it's also looking at relevance and pairing that relevance with the presence. So giving learners that clear pathway while also making the human connection that keeps them motivated. So yes, we create a program, they have a series of courses, everything builds on each other. We've got that clear pathway, but having that human connection, having those experienced faculty teaching those courses that are in there doing their presence, they're being engaged with their students, they're helping them with their critical thinking, they're getting them to think outside the box, they're giving them that timely feedback. That's all going to help keep them motivated, and having that faculty member be engaged, be in that course, but also looking at it going, okay, not just a course. How do we take that to a program? Having them look at, this course is going to help you in these next few courses. So instead of it always being, I'm just taking this course, it's connecting the course the students are taking to the courses they've had previously and the courses they're going to have in the future. And that's kind of how you create that holistic experience for the student, is just not by looking at, okay, they're in this course for these 8 weeks, they have these assignments, these readings. That is great from a course level. When you look at the program level, it's taking it a step further and making those connections from previous coursework as well as their future coursework and their career. Got another poll. And as we get the next poll up and running, please ask any other questions you have. And this one, as you're thinking about the greatest opportunity for improvement at your institution, what are your thoughts? And maybe you have other ideas for where your improvement could be. We got faculty development, I'm seeing a lot of feedback loops. An institutional strategy. Oh, now they're really flying in. Well, I'm surprised that no one chose other, so I guess my first four choices were good. But I wanted to leave another in case there's something I didn't think of. And I think all of you have covered each of these that, there's lots of opportunity across several programs, institutions to look at really kind of that quality assurance strategy. Like, how does it all fit? That's one thing when people ask, I always have a faculty member who asks me, do I need to have group work and discussions in this course? And my response is, well, is this in a program that has a teamwork outcome? And then two, is that teamwork being assessed in this course? And so it really does go back to that program. And I think it's one of those questions that faculty don't think about a lot is how does their course fit into a program? And so that's where the designer can really have a good conversation with the faculty of going, I don't know, is that a program outcome and should it be included? Also looking at that faculty development of, yes, getting them trained on how to interact with regular and substantive interaction, improving, enhancing their feedback that they give, improving their announcements, their engagement in the discussion boards, but also having faculty and programs come together and sit down and really talk about some of the struggles that they have in a program. And that's looking at that feedback loop that so many of you called out as the greatest opportunity. So it's kind of embedding those feedback loops into how does the quality assurance strategy play into part? Not just looking at asking your students what's going on in the program, but also asking your faculty, like, is this working? Do they need something else before they get to this capstone course that we're missing? And I do have a question in the chat, so I'm going to bring that over so it's right in the center. How do you convince your institution that IDs and such should be part of a greater whole, such as curriculum design, etc.? That is a challenging question. And I think a lot of it, for me, one of the ways that helped me meet with stakeholders and really help them with kind of that curriculum piece was showing the literature. Every time I meet with the deans, department chairs, or faculty, it's never, this is what Amy says. It's Amy is summarizing a bunch of literature that says this. And so that's partially why I really set on doing research on online degree programs, because I was working with faculty and was at, having some helpful suggestions for how we can improve a program. And I'm going, I don't have research to support this. And so a lot of it is being, knowing what's in the research, being able to speak about what's in the research. Anybody else have any thoughts on how IDs can be part of those conversations? You've been in there. Hopefully some of you are in a similar role as myself. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Elise Nissen made a good point in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see.
I'm reading that right now. I have had little luck sharing how we can help with alignment documentation for accreditation. It could be. One of the things that me and my team are always doing is we're very proactive. And so rather than waiting for someone to say, how does this work? We just randomly would create it. And so maybe it's looking at the accreditation standards and going, here's how we could do it, and coming up with that draft and taking that initiative of going, this may not go anywhere, but let me put something together for you. if your university is at capacity for students, this is a way to increase student numbers and reach out to a larger audience. That is a very good point. That, creating these online degree programs, looking at quality, looking at your feedback loops could really broaden that. What's an IRMA map? My guess is it's very similar to an alignment map. Institutional review. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. You have online degree programs, but we don't do many of the things that you mentioned. How would you go about repairing and rebuilding? Is there a process that you have found that works well? That is a great question, and there is no easy answer. I know Barbara's going to show a slide at the very end about a session that will be at QM Connect. But I am putting together a session for QM Connect that really looks at each of the 4 pie wedges that we showed in the diagram, and looking at it of pick one place to start. Doesn't pick program design, pick learner support, pick one of those 4 pillars, and then pick one instance of that pillar, one little fragmented wedge that's in that big piece to start working on. And it could be, it depends what your goal is. Like if you want to start with program design, maybe it's having a program template. And then first pass is making sure all your courses are in that program template. If you're looking at online programs, the best way, and from my experience of where to start, is kind of looking at those program outcomes and then looking at the program outcomes and making sure they're embedded into the courses. Because my guess is you have really cool courses, really strong courses, but they might not necessarily go in to the program. And so one of the simple things I did with the faculty was asking them, how does this course fit into the program? And give them the program outcomes and then have them kind of tell that story. So for repairing and rebuilding, figure out what needs, maybe it's not starting with what needs the most work, but what needs the littlest work, improving that, and then going backwards. Because every program is going to be different. They're all going to have their unique challenges. And so it could be looking at what you're doing well and promote that further. And then going, okay, now that we've got this in good shape, let's look at this piece of the program. And so depending on the program, it could be that your faculty need more training. And so maybe it's having them all take the TOC through QM, or maybe it's the courses need some work, and then it's going through the improving your online course series, or maybe it's that there is no feedback loop for student support, and so you build that in. And as I was answering that question, there was lots of chat going on. Okay, Barbara put in about the QM Connect session. Thank you. Show results of your customer discovery to administrators to show there's a market for what you're, yep. Definitely get your administrators, your stakeholders involved. Ask the students, meet with students. That's one of the simplest things. That's what I do so much. And it was kind of a pain during the pandemic when I wasn't seeing students on a regular basis. They might not have been the online students that were in the programs, but they were at least face to face. And I could ask them, like, what do you want out of this program? And so that really helped kind of create those conversations with faculty. I was also showing students like how we were building certain pieces of a program and giving them like okay, are these instructions clear? So, focus groups with students can be a big help as you're looking at how to improve your program. Just have a general chit chat with them, get their feedback. It's a good place to start. So from the chat, I think all of us have something we want to improve. It's where do you want to start and how to go about with it. Talk to your peers. And what's missing from current programs? Students say great stuff. Yes, students do say a lot of things. I know we did focus groups with students in our MBA program because we were teaching R, and the MBA students said, we're not going to do R on the job. We just need to know Excel. And so then we changed some of the assignments. Like, we still have an R component in there if they want to use R, but we also just focus on Excel. So we're really kind of tailoring to what the students have asked. So our next section is all about kind of the big picture. How does this, what is our big picture? What are our takeaways? So some of the key takeaways that I had in writing the paper and in putting this webinar together are on the slide, and I'll kind of go through those. But I also want in the chat for you to kind of input some of your takeaways. So for me, one of the big things is that equation of looking at that coherence, the alignment, adding the human support, and that continuous improvement. And so for me, quality looks at coherence, human support, and continuous improvement all working together. My second one is that it's holistic quality. So it's not just looking at one element, it's looking over the course of all the elements of a program, and providing that practical structure that looks at that holistic quality. So we're not just looking at one course or just looking at the faculty teaching. What is their, what are our expectations for faculty when they're teaching an online course? It's so much broader than just one piece. It's really looking at all the different pieces and looking at them holistically together. And then my final piece was looking at community and belonging and cultivating that at multiple levels. And so thinking back to that IPP model and looking at how community and belonging can be implemented at the institution level, like what things can the institution do? What supports does that institution offer to help the students feel connected to the institution, even if they're in an online program? What program elements can help the students feel connected to the program? How does the profession feed into that? And having all three of those really work together. One of the things that I did long time ago was we created what I called a community of practice meeting. And this is when we were creating a brand new online program. And so we got employers that would be hiring our students together and ask them, the student has this degree, what do you expect them to be able to do? And then it was kind of sitting down and going through all of their respective answers and creating a program that way. And so that we knew we were creating a program that was designed around the marketability, the career readiness for that student, instead of going, well, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. It's how do those pieces work together, and is that going to help them get a job? And so really looking at that community of practice. And that could be another place to start with your programs that are already in existence, is asking certain employers of your programs, like, what skills did this program help the student? What skills in this program does the student need to work for you? And making sure those are embedded. So those are my big takeaways. I hope you have some other ones along with those. And then that leads us, oh, I forgot poll 5. Well, I will ask poll five's question. What is one action you're going to take first after attending today's webinar? What is one thing you're going to do? Or at least start to do? Program learning outcomes. Oh, good. You're already answering the next one. Looking at program learning outcomes, Erin, I love it. That was one of the first things I said. I was like, when I first started creating online programs, it was like, we worked on the courses and I'm like, and then they gave me the outcomes. I'm like, okay, now I need to make the program fit the outcomes, or make the courses fit the outcomes instead of, yeah, we kind of did it backwards the first way. Now we're going about it the right way. Like, here's our outcomes. What courses do we need for these? And so that kind of opens up this next slide, so this was just one snapshot of ODPs. And this is kind of that holistic look at, okay, there's all these pieces that play a part, and kind of covering a little bit of each one of them. What I'm also planning on doing is looking at building quality through alignment. And when we're looking at building quality through alignment, what I'm really going to focus on is the connection between the learner success certification and the program design certification. And everyone I tell this to goes, oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Because to me, we don't have a quality program unless we've got that learner support built in. So if you're looking at program design, you're really looking at those program learning outcomes and creating that program map, that program alignment map. With learner success, you're looking at how successful are your students at meeting those program outcomes. And so how do we build those together? And so really looking at that alignment of the program assessments and how they fit into the courses. And then the third white paper that I'm planning on doing is all about quality through support. And with that support, looking at it of being, what support do the students need and what support do the teachers need, and combining those two together. And that's what I've got. I'm reading through. Oh, I've got another question. Do you have any resources for how to develop learner personas that could be used to emphasize with learner needs when designing programs? That is actually a very interesting question, and that was a research project I wanted to design. And so I've got it kind of in the works on the back burner. But that was one thing that my team and I were going to do, was meet with our program advisors and really start creating those learner personas of who takes the courses and the programs, and then really helping to have faculty look at those learner personas as they're building assessments, cultivating instructional materials, and all of that. That I will definitely try to include in the QM Connect work. I call it a workshop. It's a session, but it's kind of a mini workshop. But I can weave that in. And that also could be a persona piece, could definitely be included in that second white paper with the alignment. So great idea. And I'm writing that down.
It also seems like that's something that AI could certainly help with if you have a notion of what types of things are important to your learners, and what their backgrounds are, where they're coming from in your program. You could input that information into AI and ask for it to help you um, create a persona, and explain what kind of needs those learners with the different personas would have.
I love that idea too. Other questions or comments? Oh, something weird's happening. I really do hope you find the paper digestible. I was thinking of myself being a reader and wanting to know more. And obviously, in a 45-minute webinar, I can't cover everything. So I wanted to cover the highlights. And Barbara has a few other things to go through.
Yes.
Please stay with us.
Yes, hang on for just a few moments. I am a fast, well, no, I'm not a fast talker, but I will go through this quickly, I promise. So just wanted to share with you some upcoming events. All right, so the first thing that I want to make you aware of is a research project that is just going to be kicking off. And for those of you that have online programs that are fairly mature and you would like to be involved in a research project and participate in this, we're actually having an information session on Friday, October 17th at noon Eastern. And if you scan that QR code there or go to that URL that's in here, bit.ly iDesign _QM. We'll be describing what's going to be going on with that project and the research that we're doing. So, and Dr. Bethany Simonich just put the registration for that information session in the chat. So be sure and grab that. It should be great. The next thing I want to mention is that we have a winter retreat of self-paced workshops that are going on this winter. Some of you may be familiar with the summer camp that we had this summer, where those were self-paced workshops, and it seemed like those went very well. Well, this is a similar type of setup. You can complete the workshops on your schedule anytime between December 1st of this year and March 23rd of next. And you can register for these up until November 30th. So there's 3 workshops, $2.99 each, and at the end of it all, you would earn the winter retreat certificate. So please, please sign up for those. That would be great. And you go to qualitymatters.org/winter-retreat to learn more and register for them. And let's see, a couple more things. Just wanted to mention as well that QM Connect is coming up very, very quickly, November 3rd through 5th in Tucson, Arizona. There is a virtual option available, and for those of you who can't make it in person, even if you would want to, so visit qualitymatters.org/event and learn a little bit more about it. Amy's session that we've mentioned a couple of times is going to be on November 3rd and is going to be one of the webcast sessions. So if you do the virtual option, you will be able to choose and attend her session. And actually, at this point in time, I am going to stop the recording unless there are any questions I can answer for you. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.